Hello everyone, welcome to the channel, long time no see. So thank you to this commenter on my community post who suggested watching the menu. This got the most likes out of all of them. So today we are talking about the menu. Now I am assuming pretty much all of you have seen the menu. If not, I'm going to give a very quick rundown of what the plot is, and then we're just going to talk about the movie, a full spoiler discussion. So for those of you who don't know, the movie is about a couple who go to this fine dining experience, and while they are getting the courses of food, they slowly realize that they are part of the menu experience. And no, they are not being served as food like I thought going into this movie. What is actually happening is they are going to be murdered. They are going to be killed as part of this fine dining experience because the chef, played by Ralph Fiennes, has basically lost the plot. He has lost the love for the art of cooking and he wants to go out with a bang. So he's basically having this big midsummer like ritual to like send his restaurant away, send himself away, and take all these people along with him. And it's a good ass movie. It's well constructed, it's well paced, it's funny, it's witty. It is directed by the guy that did some of the greatest episodes of Succession, and you can feel that in this show. The production design is excellent, the performances are great. Ralph Fiennes, Nicholas Hoult, and Anya Taylor-Joy are genuinely excellent in this movie. And the thing I like best about this movie is it is a movie that I think scratches the itch for cinephiles. It's well made, it's well told, it's well constructed, it's objectively a well-made movie. But at the same time, I think it has massive normie appeal. And I'm not trying to sound like a snob, but I genuinely think this is like the bare minimum movie experience we should have. If you are going to pay $20 for a movie ticket, the movie needs to be at least as good as the menu. Is that like an insane thing to say? Like, it's just refreshing to watch a movie that has an intent, that isn't trying to be some highbrow Oscar movie or art piece. You know, it's not super slow paced, it's not dragging, it's not over intellectualizing its subject matter. It's just a well done thriller, a well done horror with just a dash of social commentary. And I appreciate that. I think this movie has a lot to say about loving the art you create and the relationship between trying to feed your audience while also enjoying the process, and how that can get complicated the more you get into it. You know, this is something that is explored in The Bear, in The Wrestler, in Black Swan. Ralph Fiennes' character is someone who used to enjoy the art of cooking. He used to love cooking, and now he hates it. He hates the audience he's built. He hates the price range he's got himself into, and it's for people that don't remember the dishes and don't even appreciate what he's making. And I guess what I find interesting is I used to think that the movie very much supported Ralph Fiennes' chef's characters like Emo. Like, he was actually the hero of the piece, and we were meant to be sitting there all smug, looking down on the people that are dining there and be like, ha 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 ha, eat rich, you evil rich people. But in reality, no. Like, he's a very flawed, like, his logic isn't even consistent throughout the movie. He very regularly changes his rules. Initially seems like he has very calculated rules and there's like a set of principles that he'll follow, but no, like, he very much loses the plot on multiple points. It is a very much hateful, vindictive revenge plot. But I think the interesting thing about the movie is, even despite the fact that he isn't this clear anti-hero or kind of like lovable villain, like, there are actual flaws to his plan, there is still a great sense of humanity to him. And I think a lot of this is credited to Ralph Fiennes' excellent performance. But there's this great scene where he opens up to Anya Taylor-Joy's Margot character and talks to her about her experience in the service industry. We find out rather early on that she's a sex worker. And what I find interesting about this discussion is he sees her as a genuine equal. The way he's talking to her in this scene, it doesn't even feel like, oh, we're both service worker industries, but I'm really well regarded. Who are you? You're just a sex worker. He genuinely sees her as a counterpart, like someone who can relate to him. And he asks questions about, like, did you enjoy your service work initially? Because I used to. It's a really well done, interesting conversation.
I know what.
Do you enjoy providing your...
And it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. I really like that he oscillates between someone who clearly has a set of rules that you need to follow, and then kind of has these moments where he just leans into being an unhinged maniac. I especially love this look he gives before dropping the coals in the end s'more sequence. But yes, he has these moments where his principles are very clearly defined. He takes a liking to Margot because she's in the service industry, but at the same time, he'll punish someone for merely having their student loans paid off. I think this idea that he's actually a really flawed person himself and he's not this clinical, dark, twisted genius the way we look at certain like anti-heroes is the fact that after he opens up with Anya Taylor-Joy and has this really sweet moment, it hard cuts to a sequence of Man's Foley, right? Where it turns out he actually sexually harassed someone below him and now he has to pay the piper. He is also part of these like evil, corrupt systems that he looks to be punishing. You know, part of this experience is him actually coming to terms with how he treats people that are below him in the pecking order and the fact that he isn't perfect. And it's a really interesting moment to have this moment of humanity between him and Anya Taylor-Joy, only to then, you know, juxtapose that with the fact that he's sexually harassing his co-workers. It's a scene that I always forget is in this movie, and every single time I rewatch it, it's a refreshing moment.
To our male diners, we now offer you the chance to escape.
Also, am I the only one that thought he was getting stabbed in the balls? Literally every time I rewatch this movie and she goes to like plunge little tweezers into him, I always think it's in his like groin, and it's not. Next, I think Tyler's a really interesting character. I read this Reddit post almost defending Tyler, and for a while I was actually drinking the Kool-Aid. I was like, yeah, maybe Tyler's hard done by. And then I rewatched the movie and I went, no, Tyler's a bad person. It is explicitly stated that he knew that by bringing Margot would die. Like, he knew that. It is undebatable. You can't even sit here and be like, oh, maybe he didn't take the threat seriously. It is very clearly communicated in the movie that he knew, he understood the threat. And there is a sense of guilt when he actually confirms, like, yeah, I invited Margot despite knowing what would happen to her. Like, you can see that he knows the shitty thing he did. He was not misled at any point or thought it was a bluff. And I think what I find interesting is that his kind of evil sin is built into the experience. Like, him taking the photos, him being this fanatic fan and being willing to let someone die as part of this experience is the reason he's there, right? The chef knew that he would do this. He knew he would bite. And if he didn't bite, he wouldn't be there, and no harm, no foul. Another thing I've always found interesting about this movie, I saw it like 2 or 3 times in cinemas, is the fact that their relationship is so interesting at the start of the movie. It definitely feels closer than sex worker and client. There are scenes where she kind of grabs his arm and consoles him. It almost feels like it's a girlfriend experience type of thing, right? He's paying for sex work, but also paying for her to like be there, have a good time, be the ideal girlfriend for a night, right? Now, yes, she doesn't know that she's getting into a situation where she's going to die. He's clearly an evil piece of shit. But I guess what I found interesting is there's this great moment where Anya Taylor-Joy says to him, you're paying him to serve you. It doesn't matter if he likes you or not, in reference to the chef's feelings towards Tyler. And this is obviously a really interesting like parallel to the fact that like Anya Taylor-Joy knows that it doesn't matter whether she likes Tyler or not. She's still there to give a service. And I guess I find this point interesting because yes, Tyler is shitty. He's condescending. He's annoying. He is a terrible boyfriend.
Excuse me, sir. Hi. Did you just fucking snap at me?
But the issue is, the twist of this movie early on is he's not her boyfriend. He is a client. He is paying her. And I guess I'm asking the audience, how much of his shitty personality do you think she needs to go along with, given the fact that he's paying her to be there and paying for like this sort of girlfriend experience? Because Tyler is seen as shitty from the offset. He feels like a very shitty boyfriend. But for quite some time, I was sort of sitting there like, oh, you know what? If he's paying her, I guess she could pretend to like the food. But then obviously this really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because very quickly you find out that he is like an accessory to her murder. So like literally who gives a fuck? And Tyler jumps the shark of being shitty when he starts clicking at her and berating her for her uncultured palate and the fact that she shouldn't have even been allowed in the door. But I guess what I find interesting is every time I rewatch the movie, knowing that they aren't actually a couple, and this is actually something that she's being paid to be there for, I always find their early interactions interesting because I feel like she is rather dismissive of the whole thing from the jump. And this isn't to say that she deserves what Tyler is doing to her or that Tyler is off the hook, but I'm more so saying that every time I watch the movie, they always feel like a couple that's on the rocks rather than a prostitute and her client, because of the fact that she is openly talking about the fact that she really isn't into this date idea and showing disinterest from the jump. But I guess this shows the fact that she is always willing to push against authority and why she is such a good kind of like foil to the chef and his kind of like ruling with an iron fist attitude. The fact that she's willing to actually push back against these ideas, push back at what he's giving out, literally not drinking the Kool-Aid and being like, yo, the fact that you're serving like bread without the bread is fucking whack, man. She's not going to sit in these boxes that she has to be in from the jump. But overall, I like Tyler's arc in this movie because it feels like he's consistently punished for enjoying the experience and enjoying the food. Yes, he is overzealous. Yes, he takes photos of the food when he's clearly not meant to. But at the end of the day, Ralph finds his major conceit, major issue with the people he's feeding is the fact that they don't appreciate the food. They don't remember the food. They don't savor it. Like, they're just there because it's a rich person thing to do. And Tyler and all his faults does actually feel like he's there to enjoy the food. It's embarrassing. He's an asshole to Margot at multiple different points. But I guess I find Tyler an interesting foil to the chef, right? Because on paper, he is what the chef wants. He is a massive fan of the food, but he's not a massive fan in the way that he should be. He's not enjoying the moment. He's not savoring the food. And as a result, that is enough to be lumped in with the rest of these people. Now, while I've got you here, I just want to mention that YouTube memberships to this channel are available. For a small fee, you can join Stannis' Stands, where each week I'm covering an episode of a certain show that is picked by you guys. On top of that, I also do a podcast once a month or a few times a month covering everything I've watched that I don't have time to cover on this channel. If this interests you at all, currently we are covering season 1 of Tell Me Lies. After that, it will be up to you guys what show I cover week to week, and then you go off and watch it and then join for members only videos. Function as sort of like a book club but for movies or TV shows. If this sounds interesting to you at all, please consider purchasing a membership to this channel. And now back to the video. Thank you so much. Circling back to the chef and the way he sees this experience, I like the idea that he is genuinely unsettled throughout most of the movie with this idea that Margot should not be here. Like, fundamentally, she should not be here. It was not agreed upon. You know, I find it interesting, right? Because he doesn't like that she's there because she hasn't broken any of the morals. He doesn't have any dirt on her. He isn't morally opposed to Margot the way he is all these other people. And I guess I find this interesting because unless he had dirt on Tyler's original girlfriend and had something against her, in theory, she would have been in the same position as Margot, just an unwilling participant of this awful experience. And I do wonder whether Chef would have wanted her to get out as well and order a cheeseburger as well. And I guess my question here is, was he rooting for Margot to get out of the experience? You know, to snoop around, ask for the cheeseburger and get let go and outsmart him, right? Was he rooting for her to do that because she was a victim of Tyler, or just because he saw himself in her? And I guess my question to the audience is, if Tyler had bought his original girlfriend, would she have been able to do the same maneuvers because he felt bad for her because, you know, she was just there against her will and didn't have this prior knowledge? Or would he have just cooked her with the rest of the people? You know, is the fact that Margot is a service industry worker and kind of like sees the chef for who he is that the thing that got her free? Or is it the fact that she's like an inherent victim at the hands of Tyler? I'm leaning more towards the service industry interpretation because he's clearly willing to kill people for very minor grievances. You know, he kills the actor because basically the actor was in a bad movie and one of the best punchlines of the movie. But on top of that, he murders the actor's girlfriend or secret lover, right? Because she had her student loans paid off. So clearly, you know, he isn't super morally virtuistic. And I find that makes him a lot more interesting. You know, I guess I appreciate with this movie that at the end of the day, he is just a bit of an unhinged psycho that is like kind of raging against the machine, all right? Like, a lot of modern day TV shows and movies want us rooting for like girl boss murderers or guys that kind of go against the system in like very illegal, violent ways. And this film seems to go, you know what, like, we're going to enjoy this, have fun with this, but like, this guy is an unhinged psycho. Also, I really appreciate that this movie just kind of isn't subtle. Like, it reveals 45 minutes in that everyone's going to die and it commits the bit. You know, he literally says to Margot midway through the movie, not even like a third way through the movie, like, hey, do you want to be with us or do you want to be out there? Because either way, everyone is going to die. And I appreciate a movie that says something like that and then actually commits to it. Also, I think Chef Slavic is just on demon time with his insults. One of my favorite ones is just the way he talks to Tyler with just a level of disdain, like just constantly like, yes, Tyler, ugh, Tyler. All right, Tyler, get in the kitchen. Ooh, he's making shallots and onions with butter. Wow.
There's a new dicing method of which we have been woefully ignorant. It's the shallots sauteed in butter. I bear witness to a revolution in cuisine.
Wow.
It's actually quite bad.
Like, Ralph Fiennes' delivery on all these insults to Tyler is absolutely perfect, but I also love the moment where he's asking whether the couple can name a dish they've ever had, and the woman says cod, and he goes, "It wasn't cod, you donkey." The delivery here throughout this movie from Ralph Fiennes is excellent, and I think he actually really elevates the material. I also love his delivery of "there are no substitutions at Hawthorne," and this actually serves nicely as a parallel to the fact that Margot shouldn't be there either. And his MO is obviously very much summed up in this quote where he says, "I've allowed my work to reach the price point where only the class in this room can access it, and it's people who can never be satisfied." I also love his delivery where he roasts the actor for basically ruining his Sunday off by acting in the movie and calling Dr. Sunshine, and he says, "The memory of your face in that film, seeing you now haunts me. What happens to an artist when he loses his purpose?" Finally, I really love Margot as a character. This is very much kind of the final girl trope, but she is the main girl from the jump of the movie. Like, she is consistently outsmarting everyone around her. She sees the menu for the kind of overpriced, pretentious nonsense it is, and she also kind of goes head to head with the chef at multiple different points. There is a level of kind of emotional understanding she has for him later in the movie where she sees that, yeah, he did used to enjoy making burgers. There is some humanity that she has for him, but at the end of the day, she doesn't let that cloud her survival instinct. It's really interesting. At the end of the movie, it almost feels like everyone that's been murdered, all these customers kind of buy into their fate. They kind of buy into the experience and go, well, I guess this is what he's going to do and we're going to be a part of it, whatever. And I appreciate that Margot was never going to do that. You know, I've seen a lot of complaints about this movie that no one ever fights back, and I totally get why. You know, they know they're not getting out. The movie and the experience that they are participating in is set up in a way where you very much get a feel that no matter what they do, someone will stop them. The Coast Guard will kill them. One of the chefs will find them. Like, something bad will happen. There is no use resisting. They will die. So that's what I kind of like about the movie. You know, like, Margot outsmarting the chef isn't really outsmarting the chef. He was positioning her throughout the movie to kind of find these things and hoping that she'd be smart enough to kind of like meet him on this level and somehow weave the experience in a way to let her go. And by asking for a cheeseburger, a supplementary course, you can make the argument that this is actually just her coming from rough upbringings and she appreciates like a hearty meal rather than this pretentious gobbledygook. But to me, it just felt like she was the only person that recognized the humanity that was still in him lying in the background, and she knew how to channel that. I really find the moment where Ralph Fiennes, the chef, actually says, you know, I'm going to make you a cheeseburger so good that it takes you back to the ones you had as a kid, you know, the ones that your parents could barely afford. It's this interesting moment where it could feel like a dig at her social standing, like a comment he made earlier in the movie that she took as a dig as well when he said, you shouldn't be here. But it's not that at all. What this moment is saying is that he appreciates kind of humble beginnings. He appreciates people that still have love for actual food, the love for actually being involved in something and actually experiencing it. And he genuinely seems like he's saying this as a compliment to her. You know, the fact that you could barely afford this, but you enjoyed the food so much, that's what I want to give you again. Similar to early in the movie when he says to her, like, you're not meant to be here. It isn't an insult. It's saying like, hey, like, this literally is not the vibe. You're not the type of person I want to be punishing. So again, circling back to that question I asked earlier, is there a version where he set Tyler's original ex-girlfriend free? I guess it depends on what type of person she was. You know, whether she could see the fact that this is all just pretentious gobbledygook, whether she could relate to the chef on a personal level and also be set free, or would she have been doomed if she was from a certain type of social standing, you know, a certain type of class that he just despises and is grown to despise. But yeah, overall, I really like this movie. I like the fact that the movie is broken up into chunks of the menu. I like that it's sequenced that way. I think it's really well shot. I appreciate that this movie is simultaneously reveling in food as an art form, commenting on the artist's relationship with art, while also making fun of artists themselves. Like, I kind of appreciate the fact that this movie can kind of bounce around from both sides. I think it's just a really well-made movie, and I think it's a very popular movie for a very good reason. I think most people can watch this movie and get exactly what they are meant to get out of the movie. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day.